Which is more important in photography, technical skills or creativity? I'll give you my opinion on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. If you've got a question, you know what to do. Just go to askdavidbergman.com and submit that form right there on the site. I just might pick your question to answer here on a future show. Today I've got one sent in by Andrew B, and he wants to know, can you methodically lay out the position of your model, camera, the background, the key light, the hair light, and anything else that I'm missing, specifically for portraits? I love watching you and your contemporaries like Gavin, but I feel that the setup and spacing is never given the methodical breakdown that it deserves. Thanks and keep it up. An entire community relies on you for awesome advice. Wow, no pressure, right? Well, first of all, thank you, Andrew. None of us could do what we do without you and your contemporaries tuning in right here on Adorama TV. We all do certainly appreciate that. And I'm always honored to be mentioned in the same breath with the great Gavin Hoey. He is certainly in a class all by himself. But now on to your question. I'll give you the simple answer first, and then I'm going to get into a little deeper discussion about technical versus creative skill. While I can't speak for anyone else, the reason why I don't give exact numbers like distances and angles when I'm teaching photography is that there are so many other variables that can come into play when making a photograph. If I have a model here in my studio, then sure, I might start by placing a light at a certain angle and distance away. I'm going to take a test photo and then see how it looks. But then I'm going to adjust it based on what I'm seeing. The challenge with you trying to replicate that exactly is that your model might have a different jaw structure, different color skin, and differently textured hair than my model. And what about the room that we're in? If you've got white walls and a low ceiling in your studio, then the light is going to bounce around differently than if I have a larger space with gray walls, for example. And there are thousands of combinations of lighting brands, models, and modifiers that you can use. The odds of you using the exact same setup that I have is relatively small. I bet that you've heard the old proverb, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. If you copy exactly what I'm doing in every single way, then you're not going to learn to create images. By teaching the concepts and showing examples of things to look for, you'll be much more confident to apply those skills and add to your own creativity to make something that's all your own. Now, this question does lead to a bigger discussion about photography and whether it's more technical or creative. Some people are considered to be left brain thinkers, even though the whole left brain, right brain thing has been debunked. Either way, the people who are considered to be left brain dominant tend to be more logical, critical thinkers who understand numbers and reason. Engineers, lawyers, accountants, and programmers, for example. Then there are the right brain thinkers. They tend to be more emotional, imaginative, and intuitive. People like designers, authors, teachers, and psychologists. Of course, I'm totally unfairly generalizing, but when we talk about photography, left brain thinkers tend to be more technical, while right brains are more creative. In my opinion, it's best to have fairly equal sides of both. Not everyone has that. We all know people, maybe some of you out there watching, who are much further one direction than the other. Technical photographers tend to focus on the gear that we use, cameras, lenses, lighting, and things like tripods and L brackets and tethering workstations, all the toys that we love to play with. I'm also talking about things like planning a shoot methodically, calculating exposure, bit depth in digital camera raw files, and using ICC profiles to make match prints. All of that geeky stuff is important. You need to know how your gear works. When something's not doing what you would expect, you need to change it to make it right. And especially if you're a working professional, you need that level of control to be able to repeat your skills on demand. When a client is paying you to do what you do, you've got to produce every single time. But if you're purely a technical photographer, you're missing something, in my opinion. That creative spark, being open to happy accidents, and coming up with unique ideas for your next creation. Now, please, don't take any of this as a criticism. I can be as geeky as the next person. I'm just trying to define what we're talking about here. Now, on the other hand, right brain thinkers do tend to be more creative. They've got great ideas. They likely aren't as concerned about the gear and tend to shoot pictures when it just feels right. But if you're missing the technical know-how, a purely creative photographer might know a beautiful image when they see it, but they may have trouble capturing it because of all that geeky stuff they don't understand or just don't care so much about. Here's a good analogy of the need for both technical and creative. I could spend months learning how to play all the chords on a guitar. Name a note or chord and I can nail it. But that doesn't mean I can write a song that moves people. On the other hand, I might have an incredible idea for a song, but if I don't know how to translate that into notes and chords, then I'll only stay in my brain. That song will only be there and nobody will ever hear it. You really do need both sides to be able to translate that. Now, I do think you can strengthen your weaker side if you want. If you're super technical, you should try to limit your gear and make yourself think more. For example, instead of going out to shoot with a bag full of lenses, just go out with one body and one prime lens. No zooming allowed. Maybe something super simple like a 50mm. That limitation is going to force you to look at your frame more carefully and with purpose. Pay more attention to what's happening in front of you and behind you instead of what's happening in your camera. If your composition doesn't look good, you have to physically move your body and zoom with your feet, as we say. Or maybe instead of shooting just hundreds of digital images, try shooting film. It'll make you slow down and pay attention. If nothing else, knowing that it costs money every time you push the button, that's going to make you think before you shoot each frame. And for super creative people on the other side, you just need to learn the technical stuff. Figure out your learning style. Some people learn best from reading, others from watching, and some from doing. There are plenty of resources online, like this Adorama YouTube channel, for example, with thousands of hours of photo instruction. I teach live workshops and even offer one-on-ones both live and over Zoom when I have time away from touring. If you seek out the information you need, you'll be able to translate your creative ideas into something more tangible. Look, photography is a creative endeavor. There is no right or wrong way to do it. You create it with your eyes, your brain, and your heart. But if you don't know how to translate that into pixels, film, or paper, then no one will ever see it. You also need to learn the rules, but then you can break them. Experiment and play. It's supposed to be fun. Learn the gear and also learn how to read the light. So Andrew, I hope that answers your question. There isn't one correct answer for any of this. Learn the technical stuff from me and my contemporaries, but then add your own creativity to make something that's truly your own. Let me know down in the comments if you're more technical or creative and how that impacts your images. Remember, you can send in your own photo questions just like Andrew did by going to askdavidbergman.com and filling out that form. If you like these videos, I always appreciate you hitting that like button down below, and of course, subscribing to the Adorama YouTube channel by clicking below. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you come back next time when I'll have another question to answer right here on Ask David Bergman.